Well, here we are. We're here. Welcome, Sharon, Kristen. How are you? Hope things are well with you. We're just letting some people in here. We have with us today George Szczepski, who has been an accountant extraordinaire in our community of Cambridge for some 75 years or so. No, I'm just kidding.
40 anyway.
40 anyway. Yeah. And I'm not sure, George, do you have were there any questions that were submitted to you?
None so far.
None? Okay. Well, we can just open up the discussion then. Jennifer, Kristen, Sharon, you want to pop in and ask a question and get some answers from George? He's here. He's all yours.
May I go?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. I did send in the email send this question, but I'm about to file my yearly HST report. And how does the wage subsidy work with that? Do I include that as part of my HST?
No.
Okay.
Your wage subsidy is revenue to your organization.
Right, but it's not part of my HST.
That's correct.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I didn't want to send it in without being sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'm glad you're sending stuff in. That's right. The government needs the money.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I claim it on income tax, though, like will there be like a separate file line for it, or like how does that work?
Yes, there will be. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Have a nice day.
I think that's something, George, that some companies weren't necessarily aware of, but should be aware of. Like it is revenue into the organization, right? It's I guess almost non-earned revenue. It's revenue that came in. So you do have to claim it in the same manner as you would if you made a sale. So
that's right.
Yeah.
It's not part of HST. It's not part of your HST earnings.
Right.
It's separate. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's no HST that you have to apply to a wage subsidy.
Right.
It's not revenue the same as a sale would be, where there would be HST attached to that sale. So
that's correct.
Kristen Kelly, Sharon Williams.
I actually just started at the chamber, so I'm just listening into the session and kind of hearing everyone's questions and stuff.
Well, welcome to the chamber world.
Thank you. I'm excited to join the team.
Good. Well, you probably haven't spent much time with Ian McLean yet, so you might not be so excited when you have to spend time with him, but he'll be on listening, I'm quite sure, at some point. He has a bad back today, so my assumption is he's probably laying on the floor trying to figure out how to reach his keyboard so he can sign in. Sharon Williams, do you have anything? Maybe not. Riley Thompson, good to have you in. Do you have any questions?
Riley also just joined our team, Greg.
Well, tell them to turn their cameras on. I want to see who they are. Oh.
Good morning.
Okay, so you just joined the chamber team in what capacity?
We're both working on the marketing team.
Oh,
so we're going to be helping out with that.
Awesome. Dana will be giving you guidance. Oh, there's Riley. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good. Yeah. Good to have you guys in the chamber world. I think you'll have some fun. You'll certainly learn a lot of things, and you'll expand your knowledge of the English language too with Ian McLean running your team meetings. So that's always a good thing. I think Dana can attest to that.
Thanks, Greg.
Well, am I wrong, Dana?
No, but
No.
they've only been here 3 days.
It's okay. We need to baptize people early into the system. We're trying to get in touch here with Sharon Williams. I don't know whether she's with us or not with us. Oh, you're having problems with your headset. Oh, okay. Well, do you have any questions then? You can probably hear us, but you can certainly put in a question if you have a question, and George would be happy to answer it. Not at this moment. Okay, that's fine. George, what have been some of the maybe the aside from the CEWS, which is the wage subsidy program, which can be in a lot of circumstances very complex program to go through, especially as the changes were made and where they're trying to shrink the amount of subsidy that they give. But other than that program, what has been maybe the most challenging program for you and that you've been dealing with some of your clients?
It's been the rent subsidy program.
Ah,
People are having difficulties with that.
well, and you know what? I've got a couple of members that are having some difficulty with that. They oddly enough, in this one particular case, they qualified for the first round, for the KECRA round, where the landlord actually had to make application, and their landlord did. And the reason their landlord did was the landlord is actually the husband of one of the owners or partners in the business that's in the building. So of course, they applied and they got, fully right through to the end of September. And then they went to apply for the new rent program because they were completely shut down. It's like a yoga studio. And they found out that they were denied because of the arm's length connection with the property or building owner, which was the husband of one of the partners. And they are just disqualified from getting the rent sub, which almost doesn't make sense.
No, that should be a problem. There's a lot of little points that on all these programs that people that have unusual circumstances that they get denied on, which really, I think the government has tried to change some of those things as they've gone along, but some of the changes aren't fast enough for some people, and who are in dire need. They really are some.
Well, as you and I both know, government doesn't work at the speed of business, and that's, largely the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the rent program, what about the CEBA program? There were challenges right out of the gate with the CEBA program because I think probably the most notable one is sole proprietors weren't included. The way people, received their, they weren't on a payroll, so you could have a sole proprietor operating away and, they're collecting their compensation, or even an incorporated company. The owners are collecting their compensation by dividend. And so they really had no payroll, and that was a real problem, but it's been sorted out since, I think.
Well, and what has to happen, the individual companies have to adjust. I mean, where it comes to dividend salary things, I just tell people, just stop the whole dividend program and let's just eliminate that, and just so you qualify. And I mean, this is the one-time shot in the fact that there's $40,000 available that could be tax-free over the next 2 years. It's worth changing your strategy of dividend and remuneration for people.
Mhm.
And so they're doing that. And that can be done. That was still able to be done during the year. And still you have until the end of February, really, when you have to file your T4s, that you can make adjustments one way or the other. So there's some payroll contributions going in in lieu of the salary you're taking and change to.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think that the real problem that I kind of identified right out of the gate, we created a consortium basically for advocacy called Best Waterloo Region, and it's made up of the Waterloo Region Economic Development Corporation, Tony Lamantia, Ian McLean from the Greater KW Chamber of Commerce, myself from the Cambridge Chamber, and Ian Klugman from Communitech. And what we noticed, right out of the gate was that it really seemed that CRA, oddly enough, didn't really take into consideration all the different ways in which a company can be, I guess, regulated or registered, or, a lot of people register their companies, incorporate their companies, or do things in a different manner, all of which CRA say are legal. They're certainly willing to take their HST contributions from them every quarter. So CRA has said, yes, this is a legal business operating in Ontario. However, when it came time to dole out the support mechanisms, some of those structures, or those business structures, didn't seem to fall into what was considered a proper company or organization.
Well, again, I think changes were being made by people very quickly. And with that, I think most of the people that I came in contact with, which was, I'm going to say more than a dozen, certainly applied and got, and it wasn't a problem.
Yeah.
And they've been able to outsource the 60,000, first the 40, and then the additional amounts, so didn't have a problem at all.
Yeah. Yeah. We've only heard of a couple that didn't. Part of the problem was if you applied for the first 40 was pretty easy to apply for most businesses. However, there were a couple that I noted, and it had to be something that they were doing. They were applying themselves. One guy phoned me and he says, I've applied 4 times. And he said, I'm answering all the questions. I'm uploading all the documents. And, and he kind of explained the situation. I said, man, that doesn't make sense, because you absolutely qualify. I don't understand. I said, do it again. Well, he did it the 5th time. And, that was the miracle moment for him. All of a sudden he got accepted and approved, and he got his $40,000. What he found out was the documents that he was uploading, it wasn't uploading his original 4. We're not uploading the complete document. And so there were items missing off of it. So, it was just a fault of his own. It wasn't the system that necessarily was broken. But I think, what we found was that it was very rapid, and there were very few restrictions on it. It was just, if you're a business, you fit this category, apply. We will give you $40,000. If you pay it back by the end of December 2021, you can keep 10 of it. I think that was, everybody just went out and applied. The second go round, the second tranche of $20,000, however, came with some revisions to the use of those funds, and what you're going to utilize those funds for. And if you applied for that second 20,000, it actually all pertained to the first 40,000 as well. So those hooks that weren't in the 40,000, they became part of the 40,000 after you applied for the second 20,000. And it really is that money has to be spent on current activities of the organization to keep the business operating. It can't be used for, oh, I want to buy a new piece of machinery because once this is all over, I'm going to create something else. And I think some people don't maybe understand that.
True enough, but many are taking those funds and investing them, let me tell you.
Yeah. Well, because I think, George, the first 40,000 didn't have those hooks on it. So, if you applied for that first 40,000, and I think I talked to a ton of them, as you probably know, and a ton of them were saying, look, Greg, I don't need the 40,000 right now. But I don't know what's down the road. And when I don't know what's down the road, I'm better to apply for it now, get it, and then I've got this nest egg or this basket sitting there. And I think that's what's happened with some of them is they've done that and set it aside and put it in some sort of a reserve to say, look, I don't know how long this is going to be. I don't know what tragedy my business is going to have. I got to have some resources. And I think that's okay. I think that's appropriate to do that. It was kind of there for that purpose right in the very beginning. Apply for this money right now, and then you've got it. At least it'll keep your organization breathing for a period of time. We have somebody here. Ben.
True enough, but okay.
Ben, you got any questions? We have George Szczepski with us here. He's our resident expert today.
Hey guys. No, I was just kind of sitting in here to see what you guys had to say. I did just apply for that small business, that's $10,000 thing. I haven't got it yet, but
yes. Did you get accepted?
Back in
Did you
December?
have any problems? Did you have any problems with the application online?
Nope. No, it was really straightforward, super simple. I didn't even know it existed until a couple days ago, but I filled that in, and then I was told to connect with you guys here to see if there's anything else we could do.
That was the Ontario program, right? That was the Ontario program for the 10. How about the federal one?
I'm not sure if that was provincial or federal, to be honest with you. It was on the Canada.ca.
What?
Oh. It was on the Canada.ca, Ben. For what amount were you applying for?
It was 10 to 20,000.
Oh, okay. That's the provincial one. Yep.
It was provincial. Okay.
Yep. Oh, what business are
So
you
why
in?
don't you apply?
Well, we started a new business as a result of COVID, but I applied for that one just for the business we were doing before that. It was an energy marketing business, but we weren't able to go and visit our customers anymore. So our business dropped by more than 20% from April 2019 to April 2020. So we qualified for that 10 grand, but we're actually looking into it because we started our own home delivery service called Cart to Curb. And so we were looking at grants for that to help us get through and get kickstarted.
And that's interesting because the provincial government, when they did come out with that program, that's the Ontario Small Business Support Grant, they did say, they'd made an announcement back in January that they were going to open it up to businesses that had started post-pandemic, so after April 2020. But I've asked the government, is it open? Like, are they able to apply? Because there's a number of companies that have started. I know, 5 or 6 of them that started post-pandemic and have been shut down as a result of the lockdowns or moving into gray. So, but I haven't heard whether the new businesses are eligible yet to apply for those grants. What was the other one you were talking about, George?
Well, I think the federal program could be applied for if they were in business in 19 and part of 20. They should be applying for the CEBA loan too.
Yeah. Did you apply for the CEBA loan, Ben? The 40,000?
No, I wasn't able to I wasn't able to do that one. Our boss, our partner, is we're independent contractors through another company. And so he was able to apply for it, which actually helped. We used some of that money to help kickstart our other company.
Okay. Oh, that's a good idea.
We'll have to pay it back with no interest within 2 years. That's our agreement.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that's good. Oh, look at who's awake. Look at who's awake and alive and up. And I gave your Greg DeRocher biography to your new employees that are on here listening in. So.
you're on mute there, Ian.
Kristen and Riley, just ignore everything you've heard from Greg. That's the first rule of the road when it comes to chambers. Although you're awesome, Greg. Thank you.
So we've got Ben on here.
Excellent.
Ian is kind of interesting. He had a business prior to COVID, then started a business after COVID.
Mhm.
He got some funding for his pre-COVID business. He just applied for the Ontario Small Business Support Grant and he hasn't heard anything, but the application didn't spit back in his face on the computer. So my assumption is he's going to be approved. However, he does have this new company that was started post-pandemic. And we did hear that the Ontario Small Business Support Grant would be opened up to those businesses at some point. In fact, they had said originally the end of January, but I haven't heard anything as to whether or not that's been opened up yet or not. So.
And we're encouraging people, Greg, to try and slot themselves in and fit themselves in and get the application in, and we'll, be interested in how flexible the decision makers are in Queen's Park around approvals, right? Because they understand that not everyone's going to meet all three of those criteria, but a lot of people are hurting. So again, like the other programs that the federal programs, sometimes you need to apply a couple of times, 2-3 times to kind of before it fits or you get approved, right? So persistence is one of those things that's important here as well.
Yeah. You remember, Ben, when you were applying for your very first job and you were still in high school and your mom or dad would just say to you, just keep going back and knocking on the same door and asking for a job, because sooner or later they get sick of you and give you a job because they're sick of you coming in and asking all the time. So we're telling people, just keep applying, send them in, send them in, send them in. Worst case scenario, they keep coming back and saying, no, you don't qualify. Best case scenario is like I was saying earlier about one of our members who was applying for the CEBA loan. He was doing it just slightly wrong. And the 5th time he applied, he got approved. It was his own fault, but persistence, as Ian said, sometimes it really works. What we heard unofficially this morning was that the Premier has said to the ministry, there are three key things that you have to meet in order to qualify for the Ontario Small Business Support Grant. And what the Premier has said to the ministry is, look, if they meet fully 2 of those 3 criteria, have some understanding on the 3rd area and, try and make it work for them. So we've been hammering them. Ian and I have been hammering the province like crazy, because there are just some anomalies with respects to that program that drive us crazy, because, for all intents and purposes, these businesses need a little bit of help, and it is only a little bit of help. So the government's just got to find a way to be able to do that. Otherwise, we're going to come out of this, looking pretty thin and bare around town. What about some of the other programs, Ian, that maybe Ben, I'm trying to think of what might, George, is all the federal programs, none of them are for any businesses that started up post-pandemic? What's that, Ben?
We went through the process and received a Starter Company Plus grant.
Okay. Yeah, but that's an economic development initiative, right? So that's an initiative that might have been there whether there was a pandemic or not.
Yeah.
But what about the regional recovery relief program fund?
Yeah, there's some confusion on that. And that's why I want to get in. And I thought we were going to do it this week, but we'll try and do it next Thursday. Got to get someone on from there that can talk about it, because it is stackable, but it does have some of the same provisions. That's been one of the sticking points, that if you weren't in business before that specific date, that it wasn't available, or it wasn't an option. So we need to get some clarity around that, because there's been some conflicting answers around that, particularly for those that have started up after that the September date. So, so we'll continue to work. We'll get in someone from FedDev that's with the program there.
Yeah, I think the regional relief programs were developed with a pot of money in hopes that they would be able to kind of catch all of the businesses that fell through the cracks. So I think from my understanding is I've talked to a couple of companies that have gone that route who may have been post-pandemic or maybe weren't quite set up before the pandemic hit. And they received some monies, but they were mostly in the form of a loan. I don't know that any of them got any of it granted. I think actually one did. One did not qualify for the CEBA loan because of timing with when they started. They got the $40,000 from RRRF, and 10,000 of it is forgivable, just like the regular CEBA loan. So it might not be a bad idea looking at that, and you can look at all you need to do is Google search RRRF, and the link will come right up, and you can go in there and have a look at those programs. But the moral of the story is you got to apply for absolutely everything. So you got to go on the federal government site and look at all the COVID support programs. You got to go on the provincial site and look at all the COVID programs, support programs. There's lots on the provincial site. It's ontario.ca/COVID support. And there are things like real estate tax or property tax recovery. There's energy cost recovery. There's, of course, the small business grant. There's PPE. We're telling all businesses apply for the $1,000 PPE grant. You're going to have to provide it when the doors open back up, and you might, if they're willing to give you $1,000 to help you do that, that can go a long way, especially in a small retail setting or small business. And Ben, like your business, providing protective PPE for your delivery service employees, for your vehicles is going to be key and important. So apply for it. Just apply for everything you possibly can apply for. That's the only way everybody's going to get through with the ability to be able to restart. So I know some people have said to me, well, all these businesses getting money, is it really fair? And I said, well, the problem with your theory is if they didn't get this business or this money, they wouldn't have the means to be able to restart when the province comes along and says, okay, you can open your business up, especially a small restaurant. It's thousands and thousands of dollars of orders they have to put into their suppliers. And I don't know whether you know the food business. Well, you probably do, Ben, but when you order supplies, there's not too many of them that'll say, yeah, you can pay me next month. It's cash when they come to the back door with the boxes of food. And so, you've got to have those resources to be able to get started again.
Just a question, is that PPE grant, that $1,000, that's provincial or federal?
Provincial. Ontario.ca/COVID support.
Oh, it's on that one. Okay, thank you.
Yep, for sure. And the RRF, I think, Ian, it is important that we try and get somebody on about that because to some degree it is a catch-all, but it also has additional programs out there, especially in the format of loans. While most companies don't want to burden their company with any more debt, in order to keep things going or to restart, they might not have any choice. And you can get, low interest loans through the FedDev Southern Ontario through the RRF program. So that's going to be really important as well. George, have you had any of your clients go through the RRF program?
No, I haven't, Greg. But I wonder if you could send me those links, and
Yep.
we're with the different programs.
Yep.
I'd appreciate that. It's the taxtip07@gmail.com. I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, we will get that out to you.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they're going to be important programs, George, for some of your clients that, you know, either fall through the gap or just need a little bit more to hobble through to the finish line. There's some
I hadn't heard of
yeah, there's some availability on through FedDev, and I can't remember what it was, Ian, but it was something like for Southern Ontario, it was like $1.5 billion was allocated. FedDev Southern Ontario.
So we don't know how much of that has been used, and that's part of it, right? I mean, I think the sense we get is that there's a bunch of these programs where there's still dollars available, right? Very few of them have been oversubscribed. So making these applications and seeing what flexibilities there's, it would be important.
Okay.
So maybe
No,
another
that's
thing.
pretty good. I
Oh,
haven't heard of the PPE stuff and some of these other things you mentioned. So I think that would be it's an important thing to issue out to other people that I know of too.
Yeah, because you know what? If they're going to give you $1,000, like I know it's not a whole lot of money. It doesn't seem like a lot of money, but it's either going to be your $1,000 you're going to spend on PPE, or the government's going to give you $1,000 to spend on PPE. And I think it makes more sense, given the times, that the government give you $1,000 to spend on PPE. And I think, you know, maybe we should talk. Maybe we'll talk just a tiny little bit about the moving forward, the removal of the emergency order from the province of Ontario, and that the stay-at-home order is going to be relieved from our area on Tuesday, the 16th, which signals a couple of things. It signals that businesses that are now permanently shut and only allowed to do curbside pickup will have some restrictions applied to them, and they can open. The only thing what Ian and I do not know at this point, we don't know what color we're going to come into. So is it going to be red? Is it going to be gray? Is it going to be yellow? Is it going to be green? We have no idea at this point what is going to be there. If it is the status quo of what it was prior to the lockdown on December 26th, which was at that point we were in red, I believe.
Yeah, we were in red. Yeah.
So if we go back into red, there are restrictions. There are 25% in retail stores, 10 in restaurants, 10 people in restaurants, and we're working very diligently to try and get that changed from 10 to maybe 10% capacity, because it doesn't make sense for a restaurant with 200 seats to only have 10 in, and the sub shop right next door with 20 seats gets to have 10 as well. So one gets 5% and the other one gets 50%.
I never understood that at all, why it was never a percentage.
I know. So we're hoping that it's going to be a change to a percentage, which will, again, it's still not going to help that 200 seat restaurant when they can only have maybe 20 people in, but it's going to be way better than having 10. That's for sure. Actually, it's going to be twice as good as having 10. So, but then as we progress along, there are going to be, obviously, there are some of those restrictions or some of the things in the old framework of the green, yellow, orange, red, gray framework templates that they put out. Some of those have changed. And one of the things that's really important is like yoga studios, fitness studios, all of that kind of stuff, they are restricted to the capacity of 10 people all the way up to the green, all the way up to yellow. And then it's not until green that they get to expand to more than 10 people. And that's a real huge problem. In fact, message we're going to be sending off to the province of Ontario is, what are they going to do with all of the bankrupt fitness studios? Because we're not likely to be in green until sometime in the fall. That's with our fingers crossed. And, none of these places are going to be able to carry it on from here until then without going in. So we're working on some of those issues. But there's something really important that I think Ian and I would like to share with you that we are advocating through the Best Waterloo for any businesses on here, is we are going to be heavily promoting and encouraging the governments to adopt a policy to mask up. and not just mask up with a, a piece of cheesecloth that you'll get out of the garage, or, a logoed mask that, really doesn't have any efficacy at all. We're talking about masking up with N95 capabilities, because it's the only way. It's been proven in other countries. You look at New Zealand, Australia, Germany, their numbers are dropping dramatically. And the only reason they're dropping dramatically is they implemented laws around the types of masks that are acceptable to be worn. And, high efficacy masks, minimum 3 layers, N95 if possible, if those are available. We're not expecting people to have to go out and buy these things, that somehow the government can provide them. But we absolutely know, the CDC, oddly enough, just published something yesterday that's talk about the efficacy of masks as the key ingredient to stopping community transmission. And that's all we have to do from a business perspective. All we have to do is figure out a way where we can control and reduce community transmissions. And you know what? We can go about business just as we normally have.
And I think the thing is whether it's N95s or KN95s, at a bare minimum, surgical grade masks, because those are somewhere between 50 and 65% better than a cloth mask that Greg described. And what I think business needs to continue to lead on is to say, if that's the requirement for customers, for staff, for us as business owners, that's the price we have to pay to make sure we stay open. Because what we absolutely can't do is fall into another shutdown scenario. And so I think we're going to be writing to the province and to the region and asking them to go to that level, because with especially the new variants, Greg, and that's one of the concerning things, is they're more transmissible. And so while we're doing vaccines, we need to make sure that we're doing those things we know we need to do and will continue to need to do, which is wash our hands, social distance, and wear masks, and stay home as much as possible. But those things are not going away anytime soon. And I think it's really that's the leadership role that the business community can say is that in order to stay open, we know that that's one of the things we need to do. So you'll be hearing more about that on our radio show, and we'll be writing a letter. And we're hoping that the province and the region and frankly the federal government all kind of get that and say, we know it's working, as Greg said, in other places around the world. We shouldn't have to wait too much longer to say, well, let's do what we know is working. And it's working in Germany, it's working in New Zealand, it's working in other parts of Asia. So we need to get on top of that.
The other aspect about it is rapid testing. And, I think we opened up schools on February the 8th. Oddly enough, February the 9th, 2 cases identified as schools. One of them with high capacity contact with students and teachers. So this stuff is just it's gonna migrate through, and it's got nothing to do with the fact that this virus, for the most part, really has very low mortality rates, and has, there's not everybody that gets it. Very, very low percentage of people actually end up in the hospital. But the problem is they end up in the hospital. And it's not like the regular flu bug where only the really, really, really bad cases end up in the hospital. Most people, deal with the flu at home. This particular one can hospitalize, very young and very old people. And when the hospitals get full to capacity, and you or I are driving down the street and we get into a car accident and need to go to the hospital, there's no room for us in the inn. And that's really where the problem is. So from a health expert's perspective and public health, they're saying we're monitoring the hospital activity and the hospitalizations in the ICUs. That's what's determining our driving force towards what regulations we put in. And so as a business community, we're sitting back saying, look, all we want to do is do business. So how can we be part of the solution? And part of the solution is supporting things like masking up, making sure that we should be going to the province and saying, where are the tests, rapid tests, that we can use in our business so that we can make sure our employees aren't spreading it around and we're not spreading it to customers coming into our facility. we need to have rapid testing. We need to have better masking, and we need to just hang on to these protocols for a few more months until we get the most vulnerable in communities vaccinated and we start our trend towards herd immunity through vaccination.
Yeah.
We have to do these things. And if we do these things right, there is no question about it, other than the fact that we'll have to wear this darn mask. We'll be able to go about business as usual. And I think that's really what people are kind of looking for, certainly from businesses' perspective. It's getting to the stage of desperation.
Well, and I think it's one of the reasons why we set up this chambercheck.ca platform that both our chambers are part of, which is for the chamber business ready and how to keep your business safe. There's the chamber certifications, like a lot of these just are reminder safety things where we can get certified, or your staff and yourself can get certified so that you know you're being safe and how you operate your business. And then again, this asks the expert how to access the government programs, like all of this together. And the work that we're all doing in saying business has led and will continue, needs to continue to lead and be strong with government about what are the things that we're prepared to do in order to stay open. Because I think that's ultimately everything here, Greg, is we can't afford to go back into another broad shutdown. Most businesses won't be able to survive that. And so, getting these messages out around how to get the cash flow support, how to safely run your business, protect your staff, your customers, are all important things that we're trying to do through all of these things together, on this platform.
Yeah. Ian's really concerned that we all do this because he's afraid that I'll never get a haircut if we don't.
I was talking to your wife earlier today, Gregory, on something else. Actually, making sure that she got me some of these from my own staff because they all love this. But we did, most of our conversation was around when you're actually going to get a haircut. And she's just said he's just so proud that he has not had a haircut in coming up on 12 months. And I said, he may be proud, I'm irritated. And she is much more than irritated, Greg, just so you know, just putting it out there.
Yeah, well, it happens. George likes it. I'm going to have George send her a note and say, hey, Greg's hair looks great.
Yeah.
Can't wait to talk to Lisa about it. I think she should go into a ponytail, actually.
Man bun for Greg.
I don't know about that, but folks, I think we really look at it and say this is really, really easy to deal with, and we just need to get to the other side of this and get as many arms vaccinated as possible. And the only way we're going to get there is if we have business operating, we start to look a little bit more like normal from an operational perspective. And I hate it too. I said in the very beginning, because I was a big mask supporter right from the very start, but I said, I hate wearing a mask. Like, I still despise wearing a mask. I can't stand putting it on. It drives me crazy. My glasses fog up. I get those times where it sometimes feels like it's hard to breathe, but what's the alternative? If this is going to keep businesses open and it's going to keep me safe and other people safe, then it's, just part of the routine that we have to deal with. I think if we ensure that happens and we just, my daughter works at a Shoppers Drug Mart and part-time, and her boss, it's a very small Shoppers, but her boss, which is the owner of the franchise, he will not allow anybody inside the Shoppers Drug Mart without a mask. And I said, well, what about people who say that they can't, for medical reasons they can't? He kicks them out of the store, says, well, if you can't come in, if you can't wear a mask, then you're going to have to get somebody else to come in and buy your stuff. But otherwise, there is nobody going to come into my store without wearing a mask. And, there are now, he's not the one that's standing at the front door kicking people out. It's my daughter doing that. So she's taking all the brunt of the complaints. But you know what? I think it's reasonable to ask somebody to do. There's not very many of them now that don't wear one, but yes, you're exactly right, Sharon. You can wear a shield, and why not? It's better than nothing. I quite frankly think anybody that doesn't have a shield on or doesn't wear a mask and says they can't wear a mask, It's just purely an excuse because you can wear a shield. Shield is no different than not wearing anything. So anyway, any other questions for George? George, what's your email address again?
I gotta go, Greg. Yeah.
Tax tip,
Tax tip?
tax tip.
Yep.
Yeah, tax tip 07 at
07.
gmail.com. At gmail.com.
Yep.
Thank you.
Have a look in the chat. Is that it?
Yeah, looks good.
Yep.
I can't see it right now. Hang on.
Thanks, guys. I gotta go pick up my
And
kids from school.
And Szczepski is spelled SZCZEPSKI. If you want to send George a note, I'm sure he'd answer your questions for sure.
Yep.
Or you want to email myself or Ian. My email is greg@cambridgechamber.com. And Ian's is imclean@greaterkwchamber.com. We'd be happy to help in anything that you want to speak offline about, or George for that matter. And we'd be happy to help you with anything we can. Otherwise, check chambercheck.ca for the next one coming up. If you have any problems between now and next Thursday, we've canceled Tuesday because of the holiday. But we'll see